Welcome to the October meeting of the Village of Pinehurst Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of the commission is to decide applications for certificates of appropriateness for new construction or major work within the Pinehurst Historic District, and to do so by conducting hearings and making findings of fact when such applications come before us. By law, the commission is directed to take no action except to prevent construction or alterations that would be incongruous with the special character of the historic district. I am Eric von Salzen, the chair of the commission. I ask each commissioner, starting from my far left, to state his or her name for the record.
Richard Vincent.
John Taylor.
David Herring.
Terry Lertz.
We have three members missing, but we have a quorum, so we will proceed. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of our last meeting. All commissioners have been provided with copies of the draft minutes. Does any commissioner have any changes to suggest? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The minutes are approved. May I now have a motion to enter the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. We are now in the public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. That means that anyone desiring to testify must be sworn in, and the commission is required to consider only facts presented in this hearing. The proceedings are video recorded. I ask the commissioners if they have visited any of the sites on our docket today and whether they have had any ex parte communications with respect to any of the cases we'll be considering today. Richard?
Richard Vincent, no ex parte communication, visited all the sites except for 60 and 62 Cherokee.
Eric von Salzen, I've visited all of the sites, and I did receive one ex parte communication in the form of an email from someone that I know who has an interest in historic preservation in Pinehurst. Her comments related to the second case on our docket today, 38 Chinquapin Road, and as a result of that communication, I will be recusing myself. That means I will not participate in the hearing on the second case, and Mr. Taylor will chair that portion of the hearing.
I visited all of the sites. I had brief and non-substantive conversation with the owners at 60/62 Cherokee. Other than that, no ex parte communications.
I visited all sites. I had a brief conversation with the owner at 60 Cherokee, but not ex parte.
I visited all the sites, no ex parte communication.
Thank you. In each case that the commission will hear this afternoon, staff will first present a summary of the application, the staff's evaluation of the extent to which the application complies with the commission's standards for such an application or raises issues that require further information, the staff's comments on the application, and where appropriate, the staff's recommendations for commission action. The application and its supporting documents, as well as the staff's detailed report, will then be entered into the record. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question staff about the report and testimony. Next, the applicant or the applicant's representatives will have an opportunity to provide any additional information supporting the application and to address any questions or issues identified in staff's testimony. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question the applicant witnesses. After the applicant's presentation, if any member of the public wishes to present any evidence, either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at that time and identify yourself. I will swear you in and give you an opportunity to present any reasons why you believe that the application should be granted or denied. Please remember the commission is interested in facts that will help us decide whether the proposed work would be congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historic District. As chair, I have the right to exclude testimony that isn't relevant to that subject, but I'm not required to do so. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question you about your testimony. If the applicant or staff wishes to respond to your testimony, I will permit them to do so. We will now proceed to our first case, COA 2022-00175, involving 160 Savile Row. Is the applicant present? Would you come forward, please? Would you state your name and spell your last name for the record? Thank you. You raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please come forward and sit at the table. And may we have the staff report.
I think you want to.
Oh, I have to swear you
swear
in.
me in?
All right, please rise. Raise your right hand, state your name, and spell your last name for the record, even though we know it, both of you.
Carpenter, Carpenter.
Alfred Cassidy, Cassidy.
Thank you. Oh, no, don't sit down. Do you each swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Please tell us about COA 2022-00175 involving 160 Savile Row.
Great. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for the construction of a new single-family dwelling at 160 Savile Row. The property is identified as parcel ID number 201700033. The property owners are Mike and Deborah Piazza, and the applicant is Bartlett Construction, LLC. The applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a new single dwelling. The property is currently vacant and not listed as contributing or non-contributing, and the parcel is approximately 1.01 acres in size. The applicant proposes to construct a new single-family dwelling that will consist of 2 stories and approximately 5,882 heated square feet. The proposed construction will consist of the house with lap siding, asphalt shingles and metal roofing, a screened rear porch, front porch, garage, and a concrete driveway. This is considered new major work because it is new construction or additions not considered to be minor work. The hearing was noticed in accordance with the PDO and North Carolina general statutes. And you can see the subject property is the hatched area, and the surrounding properties are in red that were notified. Here is a picture of the site plan, so you can see where the house will sit on the property. This also shows the trees and trees to be removed. Here are the elevations and the proposed materials and colors that the applicant will be using. The applicable standards, there are a lot of them, so I'm not going to read them all. It's a new residential primary structure, so it must be congruous in size, scale, proportion, style, materials, and architectural character with the range of existing structures within the Pinehurst Historic District. All construction must be compliant with the Pinehurst Development Ordinance and adhere to the relevant standards herein as appropriate to specific projects. Detailing a new primary structure should be compatible with its overall architectural style. Window and door openings must be congruous with other primary structures in the Pinehurst Historic District in terms of proportion, shape, position, location, pattern, and size. Attached garages should not be prominent on the street-facing elevation and should be set behind the front facade of the primary structure. Predominant materials and finishes for proposed new primary structures must be congruous with the historic materials and finishes in the Pinehurst Historic District in terms of composition, scale, pattern, detail, texture, finish, and color. And following materials and treatments are not permitted for new residential construction: asbestos siding or shingles, plywood siding, vinyl siding or aluminum siding, plastic, sheet metal, or a similar material used as siding or panels, any treatment of material that imparts a glossy or reflective finish to the material, concrete, cinder block, or glass block, or box chimneys. Driveways, new driveways should be located so that a minimum of alteration to historic site features such as landscaping, walkways, and retaining walls is necessary. Existing mature trees on the property should be incorporated into new street front parking areas whenever possible, and new trees introduced to reestablish the tree canopy over time. Removal of trees 12 inches in diameter at breast height and larger must not unreasonably compromise the existing tree canopy and the historic appearance of the landscape. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The commission will need to determine if the proposed single-family dwelling is congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and whether it meets the historic district standards. At this time, I'd like to submit the following into record: the staff report with attachments and exhibits, this presentation, and the application and applicant's material and exhibits.
Without objection, the materials referred to by staff are admitted into the record. Do commissioners have any questions for Ms. Carpenter? I have one question. It looked to me as though pre-construction, this is a fairly heavily wooded lot, and therefore, the very first drawing shows quite a few trees to be removed. Does that, in staff's view, present any sort of impediment to our approval of this application?
No, again, if you looked at the site plan, those trees are all in the footprint of the house and the driveway, so they have to come down.
Any other questions? All right. Mr. Bartlett, you've been sworn. What would you like to add in support of your application?
Just that the Piazzas look forward to getting started on construction. It's been a long journey for those guys, and they're looking forward to moving down here and spending the rest of their years.
Does any member of the commission have questions for the applicant? Yes, sir.
And one very minor one. There's a reference in Exhibit 3.1 to vertical lap siding. I couldn't determine from the drawings, from the elevations, where that might be located, but sometimes that's because of the way the software renders the elevations. I'm wondering, where's the vertical siding to be used?
You guys have a slide that you could put up? So you got the dormers and the two, I'd call them bump out gables.
Thank you. My misunderstanding, thanks.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Yes.
A few. Are you building all the houses in that entire subdivision? Or just checking, so.
Built a few of them in there, yeah.
The, looking at
Excuse me,
your,
could you move the mic a little bit closer to yourself? I think we're not necessarily picking up
Sure.
everything.
looking at your Exhibit A 2.1, which is the site plan, question related to the trees, it looks to me like the location of the driveway aims right at a big cluster of existing trees. Is there any reason that the design wasn't essentially flipped, so the driveway would be on the right?
So kind of rule of thumb is garages on the high side to minimize steps going into the structure. So, and that represents this right here. The garage is on the high side, which is the left side. So, and they did not want a straight shot driveway. They want a little curb appeal for the driveway. So that's how we arrived to this right here.
Second question, the columns are called out to be clear-coated cedar. The garage door is walnut, and the front door is mahogany. Any reason they're not all the same color?
To be honest with you, they're all going to end up being very close to similar colors. So cedar will, when you clear coat cedar, it will darken over time. The mahogany door with the mahogany color, I mean, it's a darker color anyway. And the garage doors, I mean, they won't tie in because you won't see them from the front elevation, but with the darker brown, it kind of carries. So, I mean, there's,
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. As I said earlier, if there is any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence, either in support of or in opposition to this application, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. I see no volunteers. Therefore, unless any member of the commission has questions, I'll declare the evidentiary record in this matter closed, and we will turn to deliberation. All speak at once.
Would be prepared to make a motion if there's no discussion.
I think we're ready for you.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2022-00175, and find the proposed major work at 160 Savile Road is consistent with Historic District standards and deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact.
Second.
Second, there is a second. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Richard? Yay. Eric, yay.
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 Yes.
Therefore, you have your certificate of appropriateness. Congratulations. The next case involves 38 Chinquapin Road. I have myself from decision in that case, from participating in that case. That means I'm not going to do it.
Mr. Chairman, just before you go, one thought came into my mind that I had not previously had. Prior to knowing that this property was going to come before us, I had heard, and I would have to consider this hearsay because it was not from a party directly involved, that there were some issues raised at the closing by which this property is passed to the new owners having to do with the external and the outside area. Some of these modifications that are proposed here are in the outside area. I'm wondering if, A, whether I'm allowed to consider that at all, and number two, whether staff is aware, is certain that the areas outside the restaurant that are proposed for demolition in particular are indeed owned by the owners. So that we're not approving something that is subject to.
We don't have anything for demolition at the moment, just these minor changes.
Thought there was a pergola that was being removed. Am I misremembering?
Oh,
Couple little brick columns.
Okay. Very well.
Good, I don't have to make a ruling on that.
Good.
Because I'm recused. So I'm going to audience.
So, Maria, I think it is you presenting. Can staff please present the proposal?
the purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for replacing the front door, painting doors and trim, removing a pergola, landscaping, removal of a light pole, and adding a new clock, removing 2 pillars, and removing a decorative fountain at 38 Chinquapin Road. The property is identified as Moore County parcel ID number 000-30476. The property owner is Connor Smith, and the applicant is Eric Hammer of Hammer Hospitality. The applicant requests the certificate of appropriateness to install a new front door, paint the doors, shutters, and other trim with colors from the approved color palette, remove bushes, and install pea gravel for landscaping, remove a pergola, remove 2 brick pillars, remove a light pole, and install a new pole with a clock attached, as well as removing a decorative fountain from the wall. The structure was built from the information that staff has in approximately 1940, 1950, and the parcel is 0.12 acres in size. This is considered major work for the replacement of windows and doors that are not compatible with the existing window and/or doors, and requires review by the Historic Preservation Commission. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the PDO and North Carolina general statutes. Again, the hatched area is the subject property, and you can see the properties that were notified that are outlined in red. So here you can see the existing front door and the proposed front door, which would be painted black. Doors and trims that would be painted, they're currently a turquoise color, and they would be painted with a darker green. Some items to be removed, the pergola, they're replacing the light post with the stop clock. They're removing the lion's head fountain from the wall, those two pillars, and removing some landscaping with pea gravel, replacing pea gravel. Applicable standards, any changes or additions to commercial buildings, including alterations in roof line, fenestration, architectural details, and materials must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. Paint colors must be in the Village of Pinehurst color palette. Any changes or additions to the storefront or facades of commercial buildings must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. Storefront should be retained and preserved along with their functional and decorative features, including entrances, display windows, transoms, bulkheads, pilasters, columns, signs, awnings, upper story windows, cornices, and details. For landscaping and vegetation, additions or alterations to the existing landscape, including plant material, hardscape, and accessory structures, must be compatible with the architectural character of the primary structure and congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The painting of the door and trim, the removal of the pillars and pergola, the landscaping, and the changing out of the light pole with a clock do meet the standards and could be approved by staff. The commission must determine if the front door change affects the overall historic form and character of the structure and/or is compatible with the architectural character of the structure, and if the change is congruous with existing commercial businesses in the Pinehurst Historic District. At this time, I'd like to submit into the record the staff report with attachments and exhibits, this presentation, and the application and applicant's materials and exhibits.
The materials are hereby admitted. Are there any questions from members of the commission for staff?
Clarify, everything on this application could be handled as a minor work but for the door.
That is correct.
And further clarification, did I hear you say they're replacing a window?
No.
Maria, you mentioned in enumerating the things that could have been approved by staff, much of them, I didn't see the removal of the decorative fountain. That is not considered in any way historic, may have been added after the building was first built?
No, that could be approved by staff as well.
Okay. Terry, anything else? Is there a representative from the applicant here? Could you please state your name, spell your last name?
Eric Hammer, Hammer.
I don't have the exact swearing-in language. I think.
I do.
Go ahead and be seated at the table. Oh, and swear both of you in?
Honor Smith, SMITH. I do.
Oh, what, if anything, would you like to add to what you've heard from Maria in support of your application?
The goal of all of any modifications is really to try to bring the building back into a historical beauty that it should be. It seemed like when we took the property over, there was liberties taken that don't match the current existing historical standards. And so getting the color scheme back, the fountain that was added recently, and ultimately like original brick work wherever we can, from removing the posts and the pergola. That's the ultimate goal. 2 comments, well, I guess maybe questions and then comments, or
Anything else you'd like to add now or
Yeah,
after questions?
I mean, the door, which is the major, it is, we did some research into like 1920s aesthetic and trying to find like alternatives of what with the glass panes. And so that's where that door imagery or the idea of the door and the design of it comes from a classic 1920s solid wood door. We do plan on keeping the glass panels on the side of the doors. It's the side of the door. It's just the door itself that we're looking to change.
Are there any questions from the commissioners for,
Question. Behind the fountain, is it just going to be the same, the brick that's there?
Continued brick, correct.
Solid, same wall?
Same wall.
Same wall? Won't be discolored?
We'll make sure it's not.
Well, because the fountain's been there for some time.
Yeah, yeah, we'll make sure it's congruent throughout.
Okay, thank you.
Can you speak a little more to the door? It looks to me like it's made up of a series of horizontal panels with a, I would say, fairly contemporary door pull. But it's all black, right? You're going to paint the whole thing black.
Correct.
Are there reveals between the boards? Is it very flat, or are the joints between the boards, are they expressed in any way?
There'll be, it's textured between the panels.
Thank you.
Richard?
Challenge we have is a lot of these improvements look great. Colors, you can prove congruity very easily within the village if you had to go find other homes with shutters, other commercial businesses with similar colors. I think that courtyard, that feel of that courtyard with the old Theos is fantastic. So I think there's particular interest from not only the members of the commissioners here, but the public as far as what you guys are doing. I think the concern that I have, not to speak for other commissioners, is just when we have something unique like this, if you can show us and show congruity or continuity within other businesses within the historic district, it makes your case so much easier. So if you came and found 4 or 5 other modern versions of that door and came and said, look here, this business has it, this business has it, it's easier to prove a case. The challenge here is it looks very modern to me. It looks like it doesn't fit in. The black, from my knowledge of the village and what I've seen, this would stand out. It wouldn't match. It wouldn't be congruous. That doesn't mean it's not approvable. That's for this hearing to decide. That's for you to plead the case. But that's my initial concern, is it would have been fantastic if you had other materials in here where you could have showed other versions that are similar to prove congruity.
I would echo that in reviewing the material in advance prior to hearing your intention. I would not have construed that door as a 1920s, as an example of what else we might have found in the 1920s were we able to go back in time and wander around the village. We don't judge things until we hear what you have to say about them. But I would be interested in your response to either one of our comments.
Well, I'm wondering if the handle was different, would that be, it seems like the handle being, if it has that modern feel, would the door be more approvable as the door itself, and then it's the handle is the issue? That's something that we could potentially change to something that's more classic, historical.
Speaking for myself only, I would say yes, that would be part of it, but I think I would have expected to see some type of raised panel door or what have you, maybe with glass, maybe not with glass. That's a different question. Certainly, there are lots of front entrance doors that have no glass in them.
Yeah, and this is hindsight, but, to show us a wooden door and say, but it's going to be black, it would have been easier to show us a black door. And it's the same here. If there was a way, if the image with sort of the sidelight windows where you could show it was going to be black, we would better understand the feel of what you were trying to achieve, where we can make the determination if it's if we believe, in our opinion, that it's congruous within the historic district. Don't get me wrong, these other changes, I think they're great. I think that the handle, I don't, if you could talk to the vision you're trying to create with this door, maybe there's some leeway on the handle, something that would make it less modern. I'm not a 1920s buff, so I'm not going to speak to it, but from my knowledge of it, doesn't feel like a historic door. It looks like a modern, modern bar door.
This is also, if I'm correct, this is the door that is somewhat more street-facing than the other door, which opens out into the courtyard and is not impossible, but difficult to see from
No,
Chinkopin Road.
this is the door that is facing the courtyard.
It's the front door.
This is
front door.
facing
Correct.
Chinkopin, through
Correct.
the archway and straight back in.
John, I have,
Back behind.
I think we're losing the focus here. This is a commercial building. This is not a residence. And I think as a commercial building, needs some latitude here relative to getting in and out of that building. And I think that's what this has accomplished. That's
Fair enough.
where I'm coming from.
I guess it's my turn.
I don't know.
Well, I certainly agree with all the comments, including Terry's. Certainly, to my eye, the door is not congruous, be it this handle or a handle that probably doesn't fit the door as well as this one does, but fits the rest of it better. On the other hand, it's not unusual in commercial buildings, even in New England, to have a marquee door in a small shop that is essentially describes the business inside as something other than a house. So in that way, I can see that the door has a special character that relates to what's inside, not so much about the architecture of the village per se. Nonetheless, it's surrounded by the side lights, which are quite classic and common and expected, and the fan light above, all of that, the little brick pilasters on the sides, the lights, all of that make up the entry composition except for the door. So I struggle with that.
Yeah, further point here. When we look at the color scheme that exists versus what the gentlemen are proposing, it's a major improvement, you know, in terms of the color scheme. I don't know how that ever got approved, because I don't think it's in the palette to begin with. So whatever changes are being made here are for the better, in my opinion, including the door, as he said, as a commercial structure, a marquee entrance. The door is a special feature of a commercial venture. I think it's appropriate.
Any other questions from the commission for
Yeah.
the applicant?
Can I add one thing? Sorry. Like you said, Richard, I mean, I don't think any of us are really 1920s experts on doors, but we felt that, you know, this solid wood door with, you know, a little modern handle that when, like Terry said, it's about the entrance, and we just wanted to really, you know, let the new kind of business show that it's a new beginning there, and I think that, you know, the door is more so leads to that, and it just adds to the whole aesthetic as well.
Anything else you'd like to add? Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who would like to be heard in this matter? Seeing none, we will conclude that the evidentiary portion of the hearing is over and turn to the staff for deliberations among the commissions.
In my mind, the fact that it's black helps. It'll make the unusual nature of the horizontal boards less obvious, I would think. Might make the handle stand out more, which isn't necessarily a bad idea if you're trying to make it a special marquee entrance. And I agree with the idea that it represents, in effect, it's a symbol of a new tenant has moved in. You know, I've been to, for example, fish restaurants where the door handle is a fish. You may not see a fish door handle anywhere in New England. Actually, you probably would, but nonetheless, it's more like a sign than it is part of the architecture. It's symbolic of what's inside. I'm trying to talk myself into what I'm having trouble with.
Terry, anything else?
No other
Richard?
comments? I can make a motion if you'd like.
I'll say, it's not a question of appropriateness. I think it's appropriate. Whether I think it looks great or not is not the issue. It's congruity. I feel like you guys could have done a better job providing us and making our life easier, showing congruity. So what we're tasked with is, I know this is commercial, but it's still congruity within the historic district as a whole. In determining that, we could still look at the commercial section, this particular road, the special character of this road, and how this road fits into the rest of the village. But we're congruity. And what I'm struggling with is whether I think it's appropriate or not, whether I think it looks fantastic or not, we need to make the determination of whether this is congruous with everything else in the commercial district and within the historic district as a whole. Now, we can get there. It would have been nicer to have more information. You would have made our life easier. You would have made our decision a whole lot easier. That makes sense?
Let me also say that although none of our decisions by themselves are precedent-setting, if 3 other commercial operations show up in the next 6 months wanting to put this same door on, citing this as evidence that their new door is now congruous, would we feel good or bad about that?
Well, the other thing that I think of, if you want to see the door, you got to go through an entranceway. I mean, you got to make a special effort to get into this setting, and the door is part of the setting. It's not standing out on the street. So it's recessed. You got to go through this tunnel into the patio area, which is a wonderful venue for a restaurant. And I think the door is just part of the ambiance.
Terry, as you know, we have certain things in our standards, mostly related to residential, where we talk about street
Right.
facing, and this is by the heart of street facing. You'd really have to be quick to see it if you were driving by in a car. And I think that is a mitigating factor to some extent as well.
I agree.
Anything else? Otherwise, I think Terry is prepared to make a motion.
I can make a motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness and find the proposed major work at 38 Chinkapin Road is consistent with historic district standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact.
Terry, is your motion, if I could ask for clarification, conditioned on the door being painted black?
Well, that's what it says in the application.
I'm sorry, that's right, yes. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion without a second. Is there a commissioner who would like to propose a change that, if acceptable to the applicants, might cause us to reconsider?
I don't think our job is to be architects here. This is an aesthetic issue, and that's what our job is, aesthetics.
Terry,
And
agree
I don't
with you.
think that it's our job to make recommendations. We either approve
I'm happy
or
to
not.
make a suggested change that might make it easier, and that is that we make it inconsistent but congruous.
Why is it inconsistent, sir? I don't disagree with you.
The door is not congruous with the historic district. It's not congruous with the architecture of the building or the surround of the door itself. But I might say that.
I guess I could
it's-
agree with that.
That
yeah.
it's congruous. Even that's hard for me to say, because as soon as I talk about congruity, then I agree with Richard. We're looking at all the other doors on all the other commercial buildings. Almost every one of them is a raised panel with glass lights in it. This would be a one of a kind.
I don't have that information. I don't know.
And well, I would generically agree with that statement. It may not be 100% true. And as we've discussed sometimes in our commission work, the standards for commercial are oftentimes not nearly as clear as they have been for residential. And that leaves us as a commission, to the extent we must abide by the standards as they are written, wishing that they might be a little more clear. But we have a friendly amendment offered, Terry.
I'm going to retract that because as I talk it through, I realize I don't really believe it.
I don't know, Richard, where do we go from here?
I don't know, I want these folks to continue.
Pardon?
I mean, I'm in support of a lot of what you're doing here. I think it looks great. I wish this application had 10 pages as it relates to that door in particular detail, and the rest of the stuff, not that important, right? It's just hard for me to get a real sense of that front. I wish we had had a blown-up front showing the black, showing the feel, where we could look at some of the doors in the village, and David made a great point. You don't just look at the door, you look at the entire entryway. You look at the columns, you look at the lighting, you look at everything. I like the look.
Yeah,
I'm struggling with whether it's congruous or not, and does that tie our hands, or can we just move beyond that? I don't know.
I agree with Richard. Everything else you're doing is a positive, and I'd hate to see this be completely rejected just because of that one piece, because we all want the rest of it. We might want this if we had more evidence or a better drawing, or as Richard said, a piece of the building with the door in it, the one that you're proposing, painted black, so we could see it. I suppose we could continue it and let the applicant come back next month and either change the door or do better at proving to us that it's congruous.
And I think, and I will maybe ask staff to opine on this, we cannot approve something which would be deemed consistent but incongruous. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
By definition, anything that we approve must be deemed congruous, regardless of whether it's consistent or inconsistent.
No, it can be incongruous. We can approve it. We can override the standards. That's what we're here for.
Override the standards, but
I mean, we don't do that very often, but
our fundamental charge is to approve that which is congruous.
Only that which is.
Only that which is. I don't think we can approve something if we deem it incongruous.
We can override the standards, but nevertheless deem something to be congruous.
Yes.
Right.
Because it's not covered by the standards.
What's the reaction to offering up a continuance?
I have no problem with offering a continuance. I want to be sure that there is no one else who chooses to make a motion other than Terry's, for which there was no second.
Not me.
Is that a impossible burden for you if you have to come back with a revised application?
No, is there a way of approving the rest of what would be approved by the staff?
I'm happy to offer that
with
motion.
Continuous on the door?
we can do that.
And there's a pathway here. I think you
Yeah.
all have taken, there's just.
I think you've painted
you can
the
make our life
direction we
really
need to
easy,
go.
and you-
Well, the,
Pace here. We just
within-
need help.
Right.
it's important to let the applicant know also that if we continue, you don't have to pay another application fee.
Right.
Yeah, no,
If
I'm aware.
if I offer up a motion as you're suggesting, which I'm willing to do, that means you got to come back with the door for a new application fee, I presume it would.
Right, if we approve of some things but not everything, that which you come back with, I suspect, is subject to in essence, a new application and therefore a new fee.
Correct, it would be a new application if you make a motion on this, on the other changes.
The rest you can handle as minor work, though.
Because you'd have to make since this is part of the application, you'd have to make a motion with that, the door not included as a condition.
Right. Is that preferable to you, better, worse?
Question for staff, is the color change of a door minor or major?
It's approved, so it'd be minor.
Pardon?
If it's the same door or a new door?
I'm-
If they did the same door,
If it's the same door, painted different color, then it's minor. If it's a new door, then it's considered major.
correct, yes.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Can we just ask our GC?
Absolutely, sure.
Yes.
Will you have time, or is that priority?
priority to do the rest of these minor changes over the next month, or do you want to wait everything for a month and? The outside before it gets cold. So then it's up to you. What do you want? I mean, so basically, if we don't get anything approved today and we have a continuance, but we can't work on anything, we can work on the door case. Except for the door, then we have to submit a new application and pay. They're okay with this $500. Okay, so we can keep on working.
Yeah.
Get the stuff done.
Would you like to voluntarily remove the door from the application?
We would.
I'm prepared to make a motion,
David, go ahead.
with the understanding that the door has now been removed from the application. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness and find the proposed major work at 38 Chinkopin Road is consistent with historic standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Before voting, I hear Tom Schroeder, who is not here, but in the back of my head, I hear him saying that given the material that has been admitted, are we allowed to individually, in essence, strike some of that? Or is what's admitted, and the motion should make it clear that we are not approving the door?
I can do that. Make it, then there's no question.
I think if they say they're removing the door from the application,
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Richard?
Hey.
John? Hey.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. You have your COA for all but the door, and we look forward to seeing you next week, and good luck with the rest of the project.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Eric.
And since there were only 4 commissioners voting, everybody had to be in favor in order to grant it. The next case to come before the commission is COA 2022-00159 involving 190 Linden Road. Are the applicants present? Would you come forward, please, ma'am? Would you state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Cassandra Dunson, Dunson,
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please come forward and have a seat. Alfred, I think you're up to present this case for us.
I am. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for the construction of addition to the property and to renovate the existing home as depicted on the attached site plan located at 190 Linden Road. The property is identified as Moore County Parcel ID number 000-28702. The property owners are Brett and Cassandra Dunson, and the applicant is Cassandra Dunson. The applicant requests a certificate appropriate to make exterior changes to her property located at 190 Linden Road. The modifications include replacement of the flat asphalt shingles to 25, 30-year dimensional shingles, installing a 2,415 square foot addition, which will increase the square footage of the existing property from 3,000 to 5,300 square feet, and installing a proposed walkway and patio. On September 10, 2020, the Historic Preservation Commission approved the previous request for multiple exterior modifications to the property. Due to the recession and the increase in the cost of building materials, the applicant chose to delay the construction phase until building materials become more affordable. The structure was built in 1958, and the property is 0.72 acres in size. Major work includes additions, not considered minor work, in adding or eliminating windows and doors is considered major work requiring review by the Historic Preservation Commission. The public hearing notice in accordance with the Pinehurst Development Ordinance and the North Carolina General Statutes 160D. This is an area view of the property which shows the location surrounded by properties in the vicinity that were notified of the request in red. This is a picture of the site plan. The proposed addition, according to the site plan, would be 2,415 square feet. The proposed addition would be located on the east side of the property. This is the previous approved site plan that was approved by the Historic Preservation Commission in 2020. And this is pretty much a comparison of the proposed site plan and the previous approved site plan. As I stated, the proposed site plan, the addition shows a slight increase in square footage. This is an illustration of the proposed floor plan and the previous approved floor plan. As I stated previously, the applicant proposes that the addition to the east of the property is increased approximately 494 square feet. This is an illustration of the proposed and previous approved elevations. This illustration shows the proposed addition. The previous approved addition shows 3 garage double doors, while the updated elevation displays that the garage doors will be 3 single flat panel insulated single garage doors. You will have wood insulated windows, and the proposed French door will be to the far right of the proposed addition. This is the proposed site plan showing the landscape plan where the applicant plans to plant 3 and 5 gallon shrubs. And these are building materials that the applicant is proposing. She's proposing, hardy plank siding. This is the proposed French door and the proposed shingles. According to the applicable standards, I'm not going to read each and every one. Any changes or additions to the configuration of existing roofs shall be compatible with the architectural styles of the existing structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. If repair or replacement of an entire roof is necessary, the new material in composition, dimension, size, shape, and colors, patterns, and textures. Any changes or addition to the exterior wall, such as windows or door openings, the configuration of an existing roof shall be compatible with the architectural style of the existing structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. If repair or replace of an entire roof is necessary, new materials should match the existing materials in composition, dimension, size, shape, colors, pattern, and textures. Adding new windows and door openings or altering or filling existing openings should not compromise the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. Windows and doors that contribute to the overall historic form and character of a structure, as well as materials, details, and features of the windows and doors that contribute to the character of the structure, should be retained and preserved. The number and size of panes in all windows, doors, hardware should be compatible with those of the existing doors and windows. Windows and doors that contribute to the overall historic form and character of a structure, as well as materials, details, and features of the windows and doors that contribute to the character of the structure, should be retained and preserved. Chimney repairs or additions should have masonry and bonding patterns, joint textures, colors, tool profiles, and detail compatible with the structures and other masonry features. Additions and new accessory buildings such as carriage houses, garages, or other buildings must be compatible with the character and the scale of the primary structure and must be congruous with the character of the Pinehurst Historic District. New features such as windows or door openings, bays, vents, dormers, roof forms, balconies, chimneys, and other details should not be introduced on existing carriage houses, garage, or buildings of they are not compatible with the primary structure. Additions and accessory buildings such as carriage houses, garages, and other buildings must be located in as inconspicuous as possible in the rear of the side yard. Wooden features that contribute to the overall character of a structure and a site, including such functions as decorative elements such as siding, shingles, brackets, pediments, columns, and architectural trim should be retained and preserved. According to the staff comments, the applicant has submitted an application to provide additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The applicant proposes that the modification request for her property conform to the applicable standards. The proposed change of the additions will result in additional architecture and character defining elements compatible to elements featured on other homes within the historic district. At this time, staff would like to submit the following to record: staff report with attachments and exhibits, presentation, application, and applicant's material and exhibit. This concludes staff's report.
Without objection, the materials referred to are admitted into the record. Questions for staff?
Alfred, if you know, is the approval that was granted 2 years ago, did that include the addition in addition to any other external modifications?
Yes, sir.
So what is different about this versus 2 years ago?
Well, according to the applicant, we talked a lot during this process, and with the increase of materials, the applicant decided to delay the construction phase.
I understand, but what is different about this application now?
Oh, the addition is slightly different. It pretty much increased almost 500 square feet, actually 494 square feet.
Larger, smaller?
Larger.
So we are, in some sense, we are approving a new footprint?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Great, thank you very much.
Sir?
To make sure I'm understanding, there's lots more that's changed, in my opinion, all to the better, other than its size. The garage doors you pointed out, but the windows are different, the front door is different, there's quite a lot.
No, I'm-
windows are
versus,
actually
versus 2 years
the same.
ago, not versus what is existing.
If I understand the staff's report, this represents what was previously approved.
I'm sorry.
Are we together? Okay, we're good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for staff? Would you like to add anything in support of your application?
Just basically reiterating that the delay was due to basically supply chain problems as well as labor cost problems, and I didn't have to. And so we chose to wait until the costs became more in line and more reasonable. And so during that time phrase, there were some things that in haste of trying to move the project forward, we noticed that the exit from the side of the garage to the rear of the property, we had left that door off. And in addition, we changed the height. We had 12 foot and 10 feet additional, that was initially approved. We brought that down from 10 foot to 10 feet and 9 feet. So basically, the center section of the house, all the way through, except for the patio, not patio, sunroom area is 10 feet. The sunroom is 9, then the wings are 9, but everything else is at 10. So that, and I think just adding some more architectural interest to the entrance, so that kind of changed a lot. It went from being totally horizontal cement siding to vertical at the entryway.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Any questions from the commission? Yes.
Questions. You have a blow-up of the door you're proposing, which has a single light of glass. Your elevation, your new elevation shows 2 lights of glass. Not that it matters, I just want to know.
So what you're looking at, I think that's a single, those are the French doors. That wouldn't be the front door. So then there are French doors that are in the sunroom area, and also from the courtyard and the dining room coming in. So you have single French doors there. That will be the single pane door that you're looking at.
I beg your pardon.
No worries.
Second item, on your exterior materials and colors, the existing is listed as white. You're proposing neutral white to gray. I don't know what that
Same
means.
as what was last. approved.
Maybe we missed it last time. Now I get another
No, it was just
shot.
in
What
the
does that
range
mean?
of being neutral. So we're going from light grays to white, somewhere in between that.
Okay. Question for staff. How do we go about approving somewhere between that color?
So if it becomes problematic, we can just go to off-white and make that really easy for everybody.
There's a little bigger issue on the colors in that you have to use the colors from the approved palette. So ideally, you would have come in with approved colors.
And I think there was a color that, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Gossamer Veil. And if that is a problem, we can stick with that color that was originally approved. But in terms of the description, light gray to white was on the original application. So nothing in that regard changed. But I did also submit an example of what that would be for me, and that would have been the Gossamer Veil color. And that was consistent with the original application as well.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Actually, before I lose the microphone, I think all the changes you've made are to the better, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I second that, and I live in that neighborhood. I drive by your house at least twice a day, and I look forward to an improvement in that situation, as I'm sure you do.
I do too. We're ready to get started, but that pricing was like, nah, I'm not doing it.
If there are no more questions for the applicant, as I said earlier, if there is any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence either in support of or in opposition to this application, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. I see no volunteers. So therefore, unless any member of the commission has any further questions, either of staff or of the applicant, this will close the evidentiary portion of this hearing, and we turn to deliberations and/or a motion.
Question for us. Is it possible to make a motion, an approval motion, that says the applicant shall choose a color from the approved palette, even though it's...
You could do that. They're supposed to identify a color in the application, as I think you said in your comments earlier. And since they didn't, then the question would be, frame the motion in terms of they'd have to identify some color from the color palette without any limitations on what that would be. If you're comfortable with that, that would be an easy motion to make.
I was going to attempt such a motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2022-00159, and find the proposed major work at 190 Linden Road is consistent with Historic District standards and deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact. And the condition being only that a specific color from the approved palette in the...
So I have a question. When you say from the approved palette, what does that mean?
There's about...
There are
5 million
227 colors, of which 150 are white. I'm sure you can find one that you will like.
It's listed in the guidelines. They're all-
So I'm kind of like really funny about my whites, because some whites are stark, some whites are yellow.
There are 150 that are I find it incongruous. There literally are 150 colors of white in the approved palette.
Okay.
You got to find one you're going to like.
Our standards require that you pick one or more colors from the color palette. And we have turned down applications where somebody wanted to use a color that was not on the color palette. And I'm frankly a little bit surprised that the staff allowed you to get this far
Well,
without
actually,
that.
like I said, there was a color that was submitted with the original application, and it should have been carried through, even though that was a description that was on that. So nothing, from my perspective, changed in that regard. But I was also hoping to use a custom white, but I see now that that's not possible, but, so.
If I can say something, staff will work with the applicant in terms of the color palette.
Yes.
So no worries. If I've got to choose from the approved list, I'll find something.
I'm absolutely positive that you will.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were 150 colors of white,
Oh.
much less another one that you might have that isn't one of
Custom,
those.
yeah.
In any event, if I could restate the motion, it is that I move that that the Historic Preservation Commission approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2022-00159, and find the proposed major work at 190 Linden Road is consistent with Historic District standards and deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact. The condition being that the applicant will work with staff to arrive at a specific color between neutral white to gray that is on the approved palette.
Is there a second?
Correct.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Richard?
Yes.
Eric? Aye.
John, yes?
Aye.
Yes.
Congratulations, you have your certificate of
Thank you, gentlemen.
appropriateness.
Appreciate it.
And finally, we come to the final hearing, final case on our docket today, COA 2022-00177, involving 60 and 62 Cherokee Road. Are the applicants present? Would you come forward, please? Whichever, all of you, some of you, whatever. Please state your name for the record and
Sean
spell your
Butler,
last name.
Butler Constructs. I'm the applicant.
Homeowner Wesley Smith.
I guess Smith is spelled the usual way.
I'm not related to Connor, though.
Oh, wait. Stay back where you were for a second. Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Now come forward and be seated. And Alfred, will you present the case?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District to install a metal roof on two certain sections of the principal structure, which is a single-family home at 60 Cherokee Road and the guest cottage at 62 Cherokee Road. Both properties are identified as Moore County parcel ID number as 000-22043. The property owners are Wesley and Anna Smith, and the applicant is Sean Butler, Butler Constructs Design. The applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness to install a black metal roof on certain sections of the principal structure and the guest house. A part of the applicant's request, he is also requested to convert all the shed-style roof pitches of the main house roof to standing seam metal and remove a vent on the guest house. Due to the recent hurricane, a tree collapsed on the guest house, which caused damage to the roof. The property is further identified as Moore County parcel ID number as 000-22043. The primary single-family structure was built in 1896, and the guest house was built in the 1940s. The parcel is located on 0.69 acres. Major roof work includes replacement of roof materials not the same style, material, and color is considered major work requiring review by the Historic Preservation Commission. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the Pinehurst Development Ordinance and the North Carolina General Statutes. This is an area view of the property, 60 and 60 Cherokee Road, which is pretty much almost a corner lot. And everything in red were the property owners that were notified of the request. This is what the applicant submitted to me. This is an area view illustration submitted by the applicant. As you can see in the illustrations, the applicant has labeled 4 sections of the primary structure and 3 sections of the guest cottage that he is proposing to make modifications by adding metal to the roof. From left to right, these are the illustrations of the modifications the applicant is proposing for the primary structure. The first picture is an illustration of the main house that displays the proposed new shed roof and the middle shed roof extensions. The middle picture is a picture of the main side of the house that displays the proposed metal on the upper side of the roof and the proposed metal shed roof. The last picture is a picture of the rear of the primary structure that displays the proposed metal accent roof. These are the illustrations of the guest house. From left to right, these are modifications that the applicant is proposing for the guest house. The first picture is a picture of the guest house that displays the proposed metal extension in the metal roof. The middle picture is a picture of the guest house right side of the primary structure displaying the proposed metal roof extensions in the metal roof. The last picture is a picture of the front of the guest house displaying the proposed shed roof, the proposed metal roof on the right side of the guest house, and the removal of the vents. And these are pictures of the guest house that the applicant submitted. From left to right, these are pictures which displays the damage of from the recent hurricane. As you can see in the first picture, it shows the damage of the roof in red. Excuse me. According to the applicable standards, I'm not going to read each and every one. Any changes or additions to the configuration of an existing roof shall be compatible with the architectural style of the existing structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. If repair or replacement of an entire roof is necessary, new materials should match the existing materials in composite dimensions, shape, size, color, patterns, and textures. Metal roof should be compatible with the architecture of the existing structure, and the material should be copper or one of the following colors: weather copper color, dark brown, dark bronze, dark gray, dark green, or dark silver. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. According to the applicant, the proposed metal roof is black. The color is not one of those listed acceptable in section 3.8.5. The commission would need to determine if this request is compatible with the architecture of the structure and congruous within the district. Metal roofs are presented on residential structures within the district. At this time, staff would like to submit the following into record: staff reports with attachments and exhibits, presentations, application, and applicant's material and exhibit. This concludes staff's report.
Without objection, the referenced materials will be admitted into the record. Questions for staff? Yes, Terry.
I think under the new standards, black is appropriate.
And you're correct.
Pardon?
You're correct. According to the new standards, black will be an
You
approved
were looking
metal
at the old standard.
Yes, yes.
So that's not a problem anymore.
No, sir, it's not.
It is, Terry. The new standards were intentionally delayed in going into effect to be after this hearing, so that
Which will be tomorrow.
people would not have to change applications at the last minute.
So how do we treat this?
So we could do what we always have the ability to do, is just say that that it's congruous, even though it's not in accordance with the governing standard. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if that's what we did. Any other questions for staff? All right, applicants, what would you like to add to the record in support of your application?
Thank you, sure. Thank you for hearing this case. We've been before the board a couple times over the years for the main house additions and greenhouses. So the idea over at 60 Cherokee, friends with Wes and Anna, business partners. I'm the general contractor that typically does work over there. We've always tried to improve, tried to make it more historic, more compatible with repairs. The hurricane happened, needed a new roof. That roofing material is no longer available. It's been discontinued. Company's out of business. So trying to upgrade that was the challenge and make it compatible with the main home. So that's why we submitted an application that included the whole entire house. Really trying to look at it from all angles. That's why I showed the elevations. Try to pick up a metal section on every facade to make it congruent, the word you guys are using. Also, we've had problems with roof drainage in those areas because they're all shed roofs that don't have a maximum slope. They're not quite 212, which you lose warranty on an asphalt shingle at that slope. So we've had some issues there. So the idea was, hey, let's take all of the shed roofs and convert them to a standing seam metal roof, which increases drainage. Standing seam, we think, is a good material for this home. It actually matches historically what was there originally during the restoration of the house and also the repairs of the roof on the guest house. We saw horizontal lath board on the roof, on the underlayment, which was indicative of metal there, which would have been standing seam back then. So just try to put together a comprehensive look for you guys to show the additional smaller pitch roofs that we're adding, new construction. Wen Smith handicap sometimes is outside trying to get in, and we thought a little covering over the roofs. Going into the back guest house, they have a school room out there, and that's the way his wheelchair wheels in there. So just trying to provide a little bit of reprieve from the elements. And also in the back of the main home, it's the same condition there. There's no soffit, just been a drainage. So it's a functional and aesthetic upgrade there.
Thank you. Questions for the applicants?
I had one, and Alfred, could you put up Exhibit 1.6? Picture H, the picture of the front of the house. Oh, yes, the one on the left, the picture of the front. I think I understood the rest of the application. Is there a part of the roof here, maybe on the top, on the right-hand side, where the pitch seems to change, that is going to be also done in metal? And if
Correct.
so, I don't think that was separately identified with another picture, but it may be part of the application.
John, I did submit it. I did not see it on the application presentation, but it's pretty simple to imagine. So what you see up there is a grapevine and a chocolate vine
Right, just
on
to
a
the
trellis.
above and to the right of that, yes. It looks like the pitch changes there. Is that a portion
Yes.
that you intend to also replace with
Yeah.
metal?
So you can't tell from the front elevation, but that's a shed roof. It's just a straight pitch, one angle, and it would be metal standing seam as well. And that'd be the front facade upgrade that we would match.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the applicants?
Shed overhangs, I'm assuming the wood support painted white just to match everything else?
Yeah, it's a pure white color in the approved whites that you guys mentioned. Same color that's there now. Yes.
Any other questions for the applicants? Hearing none. As I said earlier, if there is any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence either in support of or in opposition to this application, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. I see no one coming forward. Therefore, that will conclude the evidentiary portion of this hearing unless any member of the commission has further questions. Otherwise, we can deliberate or have a motion, or both. Yes, please do.
The drawings, fantastic as they are, don't really show much in the way of detail. They're quite clear about the concept, which I think is, in most cases, is positive. I don't generally have any objection to the addition of these little pieces of metal roof around the two buildings. The place where I have some struggles is the basic original house is what I would call a fairly tight hip roof house. If we look, for example, at the front of the house, except for the dormer, well, even the dormer has a hip, but the main body of the house also has a hip, as does the extended roofs beyond it. They're all hips. Most of the eaves are also fully boxed with horizontal soffits, noticeable fascia board, and that brings me to some of these new metal roofs being, admittedly, the drawings are a bit sketchy, but it suggests that they are fairly rudimentary in their detailing and have expressed wooden brackets, which don't exist anywhere else on the house. This kind of a detail, to my eye, is a bit incompatible with the existing architecture insofar as the details go, and particularly having to do with the brackets. So I'm somewhat handicapped by not having better detailed drawings.
Are you making a distinction between the main house and the lesser houses, lesser structures?
Not necessarily, no, but these thoughts are really true about both structures.
I think they would, if I hear you correctly, David, they would be true of the main house even if there were no secondary structure.
Yes. I think with a little bit of detailed refinement, it could be really great. But that would require a lot of imagination on my part, trying to guess how that might come out.
Well, it certainly would not be our job or your job to redesign an application, although we've come fairly close to doing that in one or two cases that I can recall, with probably some blood on the floor before we were done. Are the concerns that you've raised of sufficient gravity that they would justify denying the application?
I think given my uncertainty about how they might turn out, I might have to say there's not enough evidence here to convince me that I'll like the result.
A fair statement?
Congruous or compatible with the existing architecture. I could focus on one area as an example, and that is right at the front of the house where you're adding a gabled roof over the front door area, which is a straight gable with a flat gable end, whereas the existing house all around it has got hips everywhere. Hips on the main body of the house, hip on the dormer, and so on. I find that a
David,
bit...
what drawing are you referring to?
Let's look at...
A, main house front A.
Yeah. This one.
Alfred, can you put that up too? Is there possible to do that?
Another example of the bracket issue might be I certainly appreciate the need for some kind of weather protection over the side door, the access route from the main house back to the little schoolhouse. I appreciate the need for some kind of roofing there, but the one that's sketched, to me, is not very compatible with your original 1800s house.
And David, are you referring to the middle drawing there?
The middle one. There's a bigger version of that.
We actually do have brackets on this home existing on the carport, and that's a pretty typical cantilevered structural element that has to be there for a extended shed roof. I think the drawing is a little oversized from the perspective standpoint, so it might be a little bit too highlighted, but it's not going to be modern farmhouse. It's going to be very in keeping with the posts and beams at this site. They would be, painted white, which would fade in. It would be a cedar product, which is lasting and durable, sized appropriately.
All sounds good.
It does. I think we can make it less visible. That's not the right drawing either. We withdrew that, Alfred, and resubmitted. Do you remember that? Okay. We're not doing a gable. That's not happening.
Oh, you're not doing the gable?
No. I guess we don't have the drawing. All we're doing is putting metal on what's there. It's asphalt now. It's a shed roof. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So that is not, we debated that, and after I drew it, Anna, Wes's wife, said she didn't like it, and I said, I don't either.
I'm with her.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to draw it to see it.
Exactly. Unfortunately, we'd like you to draw it.
I have it drawn, and I submitted it. I can email it real quick.
It's represented, there is a different drawing that is not in our packets, but that has been submitted.
Primarily, that was the issue you were having, is that front elevation?
On the front, that's it, yeah. On that one particular roof of the multiple roofs. While we're looking for that, an example of the eave, my eave concern is on the little greenhouse that you have, where it's currently sort of halfway to it, the way you want it to be. You're going to extend it a little bit, box the eave in to match the adjacent boxed-in eave. I think that's all what they all ought to be like, so that so the detailing of the eaves around the house looks consistent with what's on the original house.
Which one did you like, David, and which one did you not? Sorry.
Well, some of this was when we
Trying to
visited.
find the drawing here.
While we're looking that up, David, I think it's possible that there's a difference between, I'm guessing, and we'll have to have the applicants tell me if I'm right, between the changes to the main house, which are for, let's call it aesthetic consistency, and the repairs that are necessary to the green, or to the outhouse that was damaged in the storm with the limb falling on it. I suspect they would like to be able to proceed on that. Do you have,
Okay, so let's focus on the,
and some of your concerns seem to be that the drawings are not as detailed as you would like, which would mean if they gave us more detailed drawings, you might be comfortable.
right. So as for 62, which is the little schoolhouse in the back, if we look at the roof that was damaged by the hurricane, which you now wish to convert from asphalt shingle to metal, standing seam metal, it's a simple switch and finish material, all the details stay the same, no problem. If we go around the corner to the greenhouse, the way you described it when I was there, the metal roof below the glass roof is intended to have a termination at the eave that matches the adjacent eave, and that roof likewise is just a change in material from asphalt shingle to metal. No problem with that either. Unfortunately, the drawing doesn't tell me any of this. There's no fascia board drawn. There's no detail of how the soffit looks. So I don't know what it is that I'm approving.
Can I walk you through it and we add it as a motion? Because I know what we can do. We're basically going to match what's there. I didn't know it was so complex.
We have to have a record of what it is that we've approved, because when the work is done, somebody's going to have to go out and inspect it and see if it's built in accordance with what we approved. And the inspector's not going to be able to participate in a dialogue with you or with David. What I'm wondering is this a case in which we've had before, in which we have to ask that the applicant provide us with some more detailed or more clear drawings or descriptions of what it is that they want to do?
That would be great.
Can you state what it is, succinctly state what it is that, in your view, we should have that we don't
Not too good at succinct.
have? Oh, you're better than I am. I'm a lawyer.
Elevations would be great, just simple elevations that show what it is you're trying to do for each elevation of the house and each elevation of the schoolhouse.
I'd provide elevation. So you're looking for scaled elevations with detail showing dimension of soffit extensions and widths and heights of,
Well, what I
Fascia
have,
boards?
I don't have any elevations.
we're just
I
matching it.
I have some perspective, fairly cryptic, although very delightful sketches, no elevations. So an elevation would be great. Or a 3D rendering, which is a lot more work. That'd even be better, but I'm not asking for that. Just simple elevations.
Okay. So we're going to hire an architect to go measure the existing facades and then put that on paper that that's what we're going to do? Okay,
That would be fantastic. That would make my job possible.
okay. Is it not possible to put a motion that would say the inspector could measure what is existing there and then we'd be replicating that?
A little earlier today, in your testimony, you mentioned that you had to draw it to see it, and the front, particularly over the front door. That's kind of where I am. You got to draw it to see it, to see what it looks like. Is it okay? Isn't it? Does the homeowner even like it at that point?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I should say, incidentally, just for your information, under the statute that we operate on, an application cannot be approved with fewer than 4 affirmative votes. We have only 5 commissioners here today. You can make your own judgment as to how the vote is likely to come out if we do take a vote on it today, or you could make a judgment to continue, ask us to continue the case until next month and provide the additional information that identified.
I definitely understand David's perspective. The hurricane happened. I called Alfred and said, hey, we need a new roof. He said, that's a major work. I said, when's the deadline for application? He said, tomorrow. I went over there, took pictures, sketched on top of them. I know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to match what's there, the fascia height, the soffit depth. I did not think it was needed to provide the architectural detail showing we're matching what's there. There is some, an elevation would potentially have more detail, for sure. Right now, we're in the position where we have no roof over Wes's house. We've got titanium wrap on it, which is not sufficient for over a month. The repairs necessitated going in there and taking the tree off, removing the roof, putting that back on. So I would think, Wes can overrule me here for sure, but I would think we would want permission to put a roof on the guest house and table the main house for.
But David, that was my question earlier. Is there sufficient detail to approve some portion of 62 because it has been damaged and is in need of repair versus the main house, which is different, is not, I don't think there's any time sensitivity to that.
Right.
And maybe some of the architectural detail at 62 that they would like to have, but is not necessary just to get a new roof on the house.
I have a question here for David. Are we dealing with aesthetics or structure?
Aesthetics.
Pardon?
Aesthetics. Aesthetics.
Then I think we have enough to approve it, because you're talking structure, about
I
the
respectfully-
soffits, et cetera, et cetera.
Respectfully disagree.
We've
but
approved
you're
a lot of
well-
other things
well
with a
voted.
lot less information than here.
I've stated
And
my
the
case.
only technical person, I respect your background, the rest of us would not have had any of these objections. I'm speaking for myself, and I'm putting you guys in that group, that we would probably, if you had excuse yourself, which I thought you might do since you met with these people, that we would go ahead and approve this.
You're welcome to vote.
Pardon?
You're welcome to vote, of course.
Well, Terry,
I don't know what we're voting on. I'm not,
that's the precursor to John's question is, does anyone else feel the same way as David as far as the lack of detail? Because I have to agree with a lot of what Terry said. To me, this is the one property I didn't visit, but I know the property. Call it envy or watching it sort of morph over the years and obviously copying my fans. But you guys have done a fantastic job there, and it's come together as a theme. And then there's the house across the road, very similar, black windows, darker roof. When that project came before us on the remodel, very consistent themes with black windows, white, shake, details. There's, to me, these improvements, the color, the themes, there's congruity, there's consistency. I see this in other homes in the village. I can see the picture here. There's enough for me, knowing that the applicant has said they're going to replicate and mirror what is on the existing structure. The detail piece and how it ties into the house, those are intricate details where I believe whether it's one strut or two struts is not going to change my opinion of whether that is congruous within the Stark District or not.
Richard, I agree with that, and I would not have come up with some of the issues that David has raised, but he has raised them. And then I go back to what Eric had to say, which is I'm not entirely sure I know what I'm approving or how, if I were an inspector, I would go out and determine that, yes, indeed, this was built in conformance with the approval. So Terry, to your point, no, I don't have the technical expertise to have come up with these as questions, but I don't think they're invalid questions. And I'm probably trying to split the baby to be sure they can.
what I heard was more on the order of structure rather than aesthetics.
I thought it was both.
And we're not into structure, guys. We're into aesthetics.
We can't judge the aesthetics unless we know what it's going to look like. And we've had this issue where we've been presented with a drawing by an applicant where we can't figure out what it would actually look like if it was built, because it's a rough hand sketch and so forth and so on, and doesn't have the detail that we would need, whether it's in whatever form it might be. And I think this is similar to that.
I agree with your point, but then we ought to have staff do a different kind of job than they're doing in accepting an application like this. I mean, if we're going to want drawings, which is what I'm hearing, architectural drawings, which we haven't required, and it isn't required, but if we're going to make that the issue, then we're wasting these people's time because staff has already put it in front of us.
We've had situations in the past when the applicant was not the final applicant of the night where they've gone back and amended the drawings and then come back at the end of the meeting. We don't have that opportunity
All I'm
here.
saying is let's try to avoid that in the future. That's my point.
I agree.
I mean, because
I agree.
if we really want to have structural drawings, and I've been on a commission like that, where you had to have structural drawings, then we ought to make it a requirement. This commission hasn't made that a requirement. And we're left with these kind of things where we have to use a little bit of our imagination. And I would ask staff if they must have thought that this was good enough that when they went out to approve it, they could. I think that's the key here. Is this good enough for staff to make a determination that what the applicant is proposing was executed? That's the key to me. And I think there's enough there to do that. But that's not my decision, that's staff's.
If we included dimensional specifications of the existing fascia height, soffit depth that we're matching, would that give enough criteria for the inspector to work off of?
First, we're done with the question.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So
Sorry about that.
the direct answer is, for me, I need elevations. They can be even hand-drawn, but they need to be to scale and show what it is that your intent is. To hear you speak about your intent, it sounds like what I would expect the drawing to look like. But like you, I have to see the drawing before I think it's congruous or not congruous. I can't do that in my head.
I'll let answer.
Point. Good point.
And I have to say that although I don't want us to be overly technical, I do think that we have to require enough detail that we can actually be confident as to what it is that we're going to be, that we're being asked to approve. And hearing what I've heard so far, I'm not sure I could have that confidence right now.
Back to an earlier question about the urgency of getting the roof repaired. Right now, it's watertight. They have a roof on there that will be okay for a month. There are parts of 62, the roof on 62, that you could certainly just replace the damaged roof with new asphalt shingle, but the parts where you're going to put metal, if you were to put metal on it now, you'd be at your own risk. You wouldn't have approval to do that. But I could see a way to craft a memo that says, a motion that would say that the part of the roof which is simply changing from asphalt to metal and is otherwise the same as the original house, we could craft such a motion.
Okay?
But in my mind, your 62 is watertight now, right? I'm just trying to find out how urgent the urgent is. Yeah.
Sean, can you put your mic on? Thank you.
It's a temporary roof. And construction-wise, we can't pre-flash and do what we need to do with half asphalt and half metal. It's
Difficult, be difficult.
Yeah.
Is it possible for us to craft an approval for 62, but vote to continue 60 so that they do not have to bring back an entire new application?
Yeah, we could do that.
I'm not able to do that because,
You will vote as you wish. I'm asking if it's possible,
okay, understood.
not saying it will pass.
My difficulty, to elaborate a little, is that there's too much of it, too much of 62 that is, I have questions about what it'll look like.
Heard my motion, if I make one.
Oh, that's true, that's true.
Well, why don't, if you've got a motion in mind, John, why don't you put it on the table? That may help us focus our discussion.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2022-00177, and find the proposed major work at 62 Cherokee Road is consistent with historic districts and deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact. A corollary to this is that the commission simultaneously continue the application for the work at 60 Cherokee Road. And the conditions for the work at 62 Cherokee Road is that it is approved with respect to replacement of the roofing sections only, either with shingle or with metal as in the application.
Second.
So we go forward with they can go forward with 62.
They can re-roof, they can't redo soffitting and what have you on 62, so that they really have a weather tight.
Rest of their application is left open.
Is continued so that they can provide the sort of detail which David in particular has requested.
All right, so that's your motion. David, did you?
I seconded it.
Seconded it. Is there discussion? All right, hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Richard?
Just deliberate a little bit further. So is there, for you, you're not obviously comfortable with the application as is for what they're requesting?
I am not.
No, I would not have come up with it on my own, but having heard them, I share David's concerns that I don't really know what I'm approving in some of these cases, and in particular, the cases which are not really time sensitive anyway.
But it doesn't alleviate the issue of time and urgency for the outbuilding and the immediate
Correct.
repair,
Right.
which is the main issue. That predicated the whole application, saying we have damage, we need to take care of that. While we're replacing that roof, let's expand and do other things on this property that we believe will benefit the property.
Yes, so I'm trying to approve the repair without any of the additional changes.
I should also say that there was an application in here earlier tonight that's had a tarp on the roof for a year. There are other ways to skin the cat.
That's,
You
I
will
mean,
vote
that,
against the motion you
yeah,
seconded, which is.
but I'd say that's irrelevant to this. I mean, we don't handle.
I'm just saying that if we're feeling pressured to approve something that we're not entirely comfortable with approving, speaking for myself, I don't need be so pressured that there isn't another way for the homeowner to protect his house in the interim while he gets the drawing done.
With their understanding this, with the commission, well, can we ask if there's a special meeting or a more shorter-term meeting, if commissioners be willing to do that?
Yes, but we have to at least have 40 hours notification, so yes, we can do a special meeting.
Okay by me.
I'm not going anywhere. We have a motion that's been made and seconded.
Your motion does not specify a date to which.
Did not. Presciently, I might add. Presciently, I might
All
add.
right, okay, all right. Are we ready for a vote?
I can see it and I'm comfortable, but I understand that other commissioners are not. So if this is going to be the best scenario as far as getting them something, I would go along, provided we could potentially work together to figure out how to have an additional meeting or expedite this just because of issues. Who knows? We could have 6 inches of rain 2 weeks from now, so.
I'd agree with you. I'm not comfortable with this situation at all.
But if it's the best of what's going to come out of this, there's.
Excuse me, the application has to, you can't separate it. It has to be one application.
One application.
Yes.
So my motion cannot possibly, approving one but not the other cannot work.
No, it cannot work.
Nay.
I would respectfully withdraw the motion then.
Well, does someone want to make a motion, perhaps Terry would like to make a motion, to approve the entire application as submitted? And then we'll have to take a vote on that.
I think that's a useless kind of situation based on what we've heard. But if you want somebody to do that, I guess I can.
Why don't you do that?
You're setting me up, boss. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2022-00177, and find the proposed major work at 60-62 Cherokee Road is consistent with historic district standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact.
For a second.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the commissioners. Richard?
Yay.
Eric? Nay?
John, nay.
David, nay.
Yes.
Do we need a motion to continue?
I think we need to continue the case. We have,
Do we need a motion to do so? I would move to continue application COA 2022-00177.
specify a date or?
I'm not going to specify a date until the earlier of the next meeting or such earlier time as we may be convenient.
All right.
Second.
And would that get deliberated after voting on the motion? When would potentially expedited date be discussed.
I think it requires 48 hours advance notice in some sense that we would have a quorum.
And the applicant would have to give us some heads up when the drawing's ready. Now we're talking.
Okay.
So the motions, it seems to me, should say that the case is continued until the applicant.
Not later than.
I was going to say, until the applicant advises staff that that additional material is ready to be presented, and that staff is then able to convene a hearing with at least a quorum of commissioners present.
You're correct.
That is the motion.
I accept the friendly amendment.
Thank you. Okay.
Try to do that again.
All right, motion has been made. Are you going to second it?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the commissioners. Richard?
Aye.
Eric, aye.
John, aye.
Aye.
With reservations, aye.
So you understand what we've done and what now the ball is back in your court. And I will personally advise that I will do everything possible to accommodate as quick a further hearing as is possible.
I would also just make mention of the fact that our next meeting is earlier than normal anyway. I think
Excuse
it's
me.
the 17th.
Excuse
but
me,
I'm
I
not
don't mean
sure.
to cut you off. We need a specific time and date.
All right?
We need a specific time and date.
We can't give them a specific time and date because we don't have the additional materials yet. So they say they'll get it to us on Monday, but we don't know that.
Alfred, not to debate you, because I'm sure you're better on details than I am, but isn't the whole purpose of calling a special meeting that we don't know when the date is, subject to having to give notice and what have you?
You're correct.
Our next meeting, I think, is the 17th. I'm not certain of that, but it's
Sounds right.
It is.
it's closer to 3 weeks than 4.
Right.
Hypothetically, if the drawings are delivered on Monday, 2 days later, we could have a meeting.
Yes,
Wednesday or Thursday of next week, yes.
but you have to set a time and date.
Okay, so
And what happens if we do have everything in, like we have said, then we can have the meeting. If we don't, what would happen then? I mean, we're
we
going to
could
have it.
continue it again, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's say that we're going to do it next, what that day is, and, you know, that's what we're going to do.
Alfred, you have to put the date and time when you send out the 48-hour notice. We don't have to specify that in advance now, I don't think. We do have to specify that now?
I think that's, you know, you have to have a specific time and date. What about if you have everything in by Monday, why not do it either Wednesday or Thursday of next week? At least Wednesday.
Thursday, November 3.
I know Thursday. we
Either
have-
Thursday or Friday are good for me.
I won't be here, so we'd need a
Friday, November 4.
most magical place on earth.
I will not be available on the 4th.
Do we rule out, do we rule out Wednesday?
Oh, we also have 2 other commissioners to contact, maybe
Make sure.
Richards or,
But if I'm not mistaken, you set a date. If that date doesn't get achieved, that date doesn't get achieved. The
Right.
materials aren't submitted, the meeting doesn't happen.
right.
Makes sense to me. I don't know the other rules.
3rd? Wednesday?
and in hopes that the other commissioners can make it.
Just to give us a little more, would we like to say Monday, the 7th? Does that help the two of you? And
I can do that.
we don't have to do
I
this.
don't have my calendar, do what you gotta do.
Monday, November 7 works for me.
Why don't we say the 7th gives us all a little bit more breathing room and the possibility to contact Tom and Kara?
World Series is over, no problem.
Yeah, so long as it's not first thing in the morning, I'm okay on the 7th.
Monday, the 7th?
Let me look at the calendar. Can we take a quick recess?
We're in recess. call this meeting back to order. We've been advised by staff that we need to specify time and date of the continued hearing on the portion of this application, at which time we will consider additional materials that the applicant will be providing to staff. So the question is, what date and time shall we select? Anybody have any preferences?
I think the date that 4 people have said they can attest, and one maybe yes, maybe no, is Monday. And
7th?
Monday, the 7th. I can do it at 4 o'clock. I can do it any time after about 9 in the morning.
Do it any time in the afternoon.
Do we have, staff, do we have space available for?
No.
It's a week from Monday. It's the day before. Election Day is Tuesday.
So
We
staff
couldn't
did say
we
this.
couldn't meet here, but we
Can we
could meet
convene
in the
across?
conference room.
So that date, staff did say there's no 48-hour requirement, so it could happen sooner. The only day would work for me is tomorrow, and then I'm out. They would have to turn around.
We can't give 48 hours notice anyway.
There's no requirement.
Oh, we don't?
That's why we're saying
No.
we could expedite if the commissioner's schedule can allow, and staff. It may not be Friday, it may be Monday or Tuesday next week, I don't.
Yeah, I'm not available tomorrow. Not that I have to be, but
Wednesday of next week, day after the election?
Election's not next week.
Wednesday, the 9th, sorry, not.
Trying to figure it out.
hey,
With only one case to hear, we could start at 4:30 or even 5 o'clock if we needed to. Get them out of here.
do the 9th or not?
$5 o'clock.
All right, 9th at 5 o'clock. Does that sound good? How about,
Just to be clear, what I have to make sure I can do it by that time. Elevations,
That's it.
scaled elevations.
Yep.
Showing the existing and what is going to be there, being the same.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I can,
David, you also said scale drawings, and
Well, we're just saying.
Would be the
drawings
same
need
thing,
to
but-
be to scale.
Right.
I think we're on the same page, right?
that'll work for you? Okay.
That means 8 elevations. Okay.
All right. So the continued hearing is scheduled for what did we decide? The
Wednesday, the 9th.
9th at 5 PM in this room,
Correct?
okay? That therefore concludes this public hearing. May I have a motion to continue, to close the public hearing and return to the regular commission meeting?
So moved.
Is there any, all in favor, say aye.
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 Say nay. Motion passes. We are now in the regular meeting. Thank you, gentlemen. We also have the minor work and staff approvals, which we have seen, unless anybody has any comments on those. Is there any other business to come before this hearing?
Yes.
Yes. Well, a work session.
Yes.
Have materials that we started to review at our last meeting, and we have some more of the part of the same project. Are we ready to proceed with that discussion?
I think would be best, I believe, to, considering the late hour and our exhaustion level.
All right. Have the materials for,
All I brought was the roof section, that second half. But I did pass out copies to everyone a month ago.
yes. Well,
Part of section 3.
I hate to be the one, but I was surprised by family in town yesterday.
Shall we just postpone?
why don't we postpone? Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, as the good book says. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned until our next either special or regular meeting.